Hello, this is my beginner's guide to Valorant. This is episode 3, shooting. We're going to go over some basics, but first we're going to put on the shooting error graph. So video stats, gameplay stats, shooting error, and graph only. Don't recommend going text or show both, and the graph is all you'll need. And you'll see it appears on the top right, and then we're going to learn how to read this graph. But first we want to be making sure we're recording our gameplay, because this is where this graph really shines. It will help you analyze if you were losing a fight because you were moving or because you were not aiming very well. So we're going to be looking at reading this graph, which is on the top left. There's a 0.2, and that 0.2 indicates that we have a base shooting error of 0.2. Guns will add to this or take away from this based on like if you're aiming in or not, or if you're just shooting. So Phantom has a 0 shooting error just by itself. So when I shoot, I actually get the base shooting error of 0.2. But if I get a classic, the classic itself has 0.2 shooting error. So it adds on to the base shooting error we already have of 0.4. And now it makes 0.4. And now if I go get a Guardian and aim in, this actually has minus 0.2 shooting error. So it actually takes away our base shooting error and leaves us at 0, which means that the bullet goes exactly where we aim. So first of all, this part we'll go over more in depth in our next video, but now we're going to go over the main part of this video, which is the colors of the bars. So the color of the bar when I'm standing still is orange, but the color of the bar when I'm moving is blue. We want to be staying away from blue at all costs, because when we're moving and shooting, we're not accurate, and blue indicates that we're moving, and orange indicates that we're standing still. So this means that we can really use this to analyze when we're taking fights when we're accurate, and we're shooting when we're accurate, and we aren't shooting when we're not accurate. Obviously, there are some fights where you want to move and shoot, but we'll go over that more next video. But this video, we want to be using this to improve our counter strafing. So we want to make sure that we're using we're using A and D, or left and right, whatever you have binded to left and right, to counter strafe. So counter strafing is using the left and right keys and shooting at the ends of when you strafe. So when you stand still at the end of a strafe, you shoot. And you can do this as slow as you want. I'd actually recommend that you do this fairly slow, because you want good reps and you want good form, and you don't care about being fast yet. You shouldn't care about being fast, because if you have good form and you're doing this quite well, then you'll get speed through it being second nature. So you want to be fairly slow at first, and making sure that you're just accurate. And then you can speed it up to a point where you feel comfortable. And I recommend do it on the wall first, and then you can start using it on bots to get headshots if you want to. The main part of this exercise in general is to just make sure that you have the orange bars as much as possible when you're counter strafing. And it doesn't matter how slow you are, because I'll let you into a little thing where I can tell how good players are based on how fast they shoot. If a player is too fast, then it shows me like that they're probably pretty bad, right? They actually don't know. They actually don't understand the game as much as they should. So they don't take as much time to aim, and they don't take as much time to move correctly when taking fights. Radiant players and other Immortal players and things like that, right? They will take more time relative to their reaction time they'll take more time to actually end up shooting the first bullet. So when they first see someone, they'll take more time to shoot the first bullet than lower elo players will, relative to their reaction time, right? Because the bad players will shoot instantly because they've seen someone, but the good players won't shoot instantly. They'll take their time to aim, and they'll take the time to move correctly to not die instantly in the fight. And obviously this doesn't always happen, but a lot of the time, this is one of the main gaps of like aim and movement for like some of the high elo players that people just don't seem to understand. So I recommend that you always take your time while shooting, right? And eventually you'll get to a point where you're fast, and you take your time relative to your reaction time, if that makes sense, right? I recommend as well, once you get to, oh my god, try not to say recommend challenge, Jesus Christ. So once you get to a certain point, like on these bots, right, where you can counter strafe fairly accurately on the bots, you can take that to DM. Don't obviously I'm not saying like this is like a process like you have to be on the practice range doing this the whole time. You can use aim lab if you want to. You can even use it. You can go straight to DM if you want to. It's just whatever you find like you'll get the most practice out of. We also use this activity here as well. I use this with my students, and I first found this from Woohoo Jin. So if you want to, you can go and check out his content as well. His content is very, very good for learning the game, and just in general, knowing the game, analyzing the game. Really good for like high elo players, really good for low elo players. It's good for everyone. So this exercise basically, he personally recommends that there is a metronome as well. And I think that's pretty good too, but if you don't want to do that, that's completely fine. The idea is that you want to be hitting like fairly central on this door majority of the time, and you want to keep the bar orange as much as possible. And you also want to go beyond these trips on the left and the right. So you want to go here, like here-ish, or like beyond, then once again, right? And you want to go kind of close to the trips as much as possible while being beyond them. That's like the idea, right? And you can go quite close like this. It's obviously easier when you're close than it is when you're far back like this. So, you know, if you're struggling like with this one, like being far back against this, like pipe, then you can move back, going like a mid-range. Or if you're really struggling, then you can go really close. But don't worry too much. Once again, it's about being consistent, getting the orange bars consistently, than it is about speed. And eventually you should get to a decent point where you feel like you can counter strafe, at least versus the players in your elo. So I hope this helped. This is very, very basic. And next video, we should be going over peeking and how to play with certain guns. Well, when peeking and when you do peek, when you run and shoot, that sort of stuff. We're going to be going over like general movement and shooting combined sort of basics. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next one.